guys? Winner Kills here, and welcome to a brand new deck profile for what is going to be my main go-to competitive deck moving forward. With one deck 1 month being on hold, I wanted to choose a strategy that I could really latch onto, learn a lot with, improve a lot with, and just put all of my brain power towards it. And Infinitrack Trains was the deck that I chose, mainly because we can abuse this card in it very, very easily, and we can abuse it pretty well. Trains also has a nice balance of being able to OTK and access a very nice grind game, and does have some nice tricks up its sleeve if it does have to go first. Also, not to mention, it's not the most popular deck in the world, so you do have that nice little surprise factor working in your favor because your opponent really doesn't know what any of your cards do. Also, another thing is I've been play testing this deck a lot on my stream, so if you want to check that out, link to my Twitch below, go ahead and toss the channel a follow. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun and a lot of success with this deck lately, and I'll go ahead and over the course of this deck profile sort of talk about some of the main reasons behind me choosing this as my main go-to deck. But we're going to get into this profile here, but before we do, I want to make a quick shout out to some of our sponsors, first being Imperium Duelist. If you guys are interested in this playmat you're going to see me use here in this video, or any of the sleeves that I'm rocking, feel free to check out Imperium Duelist down below. They're all from Imperium Duelist, and I have a discount code through them that you guys can use at checkout to save 10% off your entire order. Winner Kills 10 off. You'll support the channel in the process, and you'll get some amazing gear as well. Also want to mention, if you're buying anything on TCG Player, whether it be for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever it may be, please don't forget to use my affiliate link to them down in the description below, because a small bit of the revenue from your purchase will go right back into the channel, and that does help out way more than you'd think. And lastly, if you want early deck profiles, early videos, behind the scene posts, or maybe your name at the end of all my videos, consider hitting that blue join button down below for more information. Without further ado, let's get into this deck profile. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into the profile, and obviously we'll start with the monsters like we usually do. We have 3 copies of Super Express Bullet Train, 3 copies of Heavy Freight Train Derrick Crane, 1 Night Express Knight, and we have a proxy here, and that is Machina Citadel. I'll make sure I put up a picture on the screen here. 2 Railroad Stampede, and then into our Infinitrack lineup, 3 Brutal Dozer, 1 Trencher, 1 Shovel, 1 Tunneler, and 1 Harvester. For our hand traps, we have 3 Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Psy-Frame Gear Gamma, and obviously the driver to boot. For the spells, 3 Revolving Switchyard, 3 Heavy Forward, 3 Urgent Schedule, 3 Forbidden Droplet, and then into the traps, just 3 Impermanence and 1 Drag Shovel to round out everything else. Now for the extra deck, for our links, we have 2 copies of Infinitrack Goliath, 2 copies of the Double-Headed Anger Knuckle, 1 of the Drill Driver Vespinato, 2 copies of Infinitrack River Stormer, 1 Sky Palace Gangiridai, 2 copies of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. Then stepping up from there, we have 2 number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Doras, and then from there, 2 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Leaves, and then last but not least, 1 Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder. That rounds out for the extra deck. Now we'll go ahead and go through the deck profile one more time, a lot slower and a lot more in-depth for our card by card. Alright, so first things first here, we have 3 copies of Super Express Bullet Train. Probably hands down one of the better cards in the deck as far as extenders are concerned, based on how easy the activation requirement is for this card. But basically, it's a level 10 Earth Machine with 3000 attack, 0 defense that says cannot declare an attack unless you send 2 other cards you control to the graveyard. You can only use each of the effects of Super Express Bullet Train once per turn. The first effect being, if all monsters you control are Earth Machines, minimum 1, you can special summon this card from your hand. The other effect being, during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can target 1 machine monster in your graveyard except itself and add it to your hand. So that other effect, that last effect there, is one of the reasons why I really like this card a lot. You'll see in the side deck later when we go over the virtual side deck, because I don't have a physical side deck prepared yet for this. But you can recycle some of your good side deck cards like the Jizukiru, the Kaiju, and also just recycle all of your engine cards turn after turn, and recycle cards that just give you plays to make during your next turn anyways, like some of your normal summon cards like your Flying Pegasus or your Night Express Knight. And What's another really good engine that constantly gives you a normal summon to follow up every turn with? The Invoker engine, the Alistair engine. So this kind of reminds me a little bit of that, because it is giving you that nice option at the end of every turn to basically just recycle cards back for free. Fantastic card all around, and it's just such an easy activation requirement to get this card onto the field. And if you saw earlier in the quick deck profile, you see, we do play a lot of Earth Machines, and our extra deck is pretty much full of them. So getting this card onto the field is not a difficult thing to do. Next up, we have 3 Heavy Freight Train Derek Crane, another really good superior extender here, another level 10 Earth Machine, because that's kind of the theme of this deck. We have a lot of big rank 10 Xyzs in the extra deck, and of course we need ways to make them. But basically it says if an Earth Machine monster is normal or special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, but its original attack and defense become halved. You can only use this effect of Heavy Freight Train Derek Crane once per turn. If this card is detached from an Xyz monster and sent to the graveyard to activate that monster's effects, you can target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. So basically, that second effect isn't once per turn. So if you have multiples of these on the field, if you get one off of Urgent Schedule or off of your Railroad Pegasus, or just get this onto the field by its own effect, you can pop multiple cards, and it gives you a lot more value to some of your big rank 10 Xyz monsters. It even makes Zeus a bit more potent if they do have a negate for it, and you still have that Derek Crane to work in your favor to potentially remove more cards. But it's really nice to have not only an amazing an extender like this card, but that built-in searchable spot removal. And not to mention, the way it is ruled here in the TCG, you can use a card like, Derek Crane to chain block your normal summons. More importantly, a card like Harvester that does search, so you can chain block it from getting ashed. At least that's what my chat was telling me. They could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how the ruling works here in the TCG. It is a little different in the OCG, and that is, I believe, how the EDO Pro system operates based on some of those OCG rulings. But then again, you can use it to chain block your normal summons. As far as I'm concerned, if anyone else has any other information on that, please feel free to drop it in the comments below. Next up, we have Night Express Knight, our first main dedicated normal summon of the deck. It is a level 10 Earth Machine, obviously, as you can tell, but we can normal summon it without tributing, and if we do, its original attack becomes 0. So we don't really care too much about the stats of this card. We just care that it's a level 10 Earth Machine, and we can use it to make some of our big Xyz monsters in the extra deck, because that's how we win a lot of our games, because one burns for 2k and the other swings for 6,000 direct in most ideal cases, and obviously that's 8,000 damage, and this card is helping us achieve that goal, achieve that mission. And one's perfectly fine because it is pretty searchable, pretty accessible, and we don't want to draw multiples of them. Here is that proxy. This is Machina Citadel. This is a card I was pretty hesitant on running, but I do realize the value that it brings to the deck, especially when it has to go first. And it also just offers a nice little trick to add up your sleeve, a little bit of extra oomph to the deck. Helps in the grind game and things like that as well. But basically it says it is also a level 10 Earth Machine, so it fits with the synergy there. 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense, cannot be normal summon set, must be special summoned by a card effect. Quick effect, you can target one machine monster you control as cost, destroy that machine monster, and all monsters your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to it. If a face-up Earth Machine monster or monsters you control except itself is destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. So yeah, you can basically just target itself to destroy it, and then you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls with 3,000 or less attack. You can get this out of the deck very easily with cards like Urgent Schedule or your Infinitrack River Stormer, our rank 5 that we are playing in the extra deck. And in fact, that's one of the nice setups that you can do during your turn if you have to go first. You can just use River Stormer to set it up. So if your opponent happens to destroy anything on your turn, you can just revive the Citadel out of the graveyard, and then you have a board wipe essentially to use in your favor. So it's a very, very nice card. I like it at 1. I don't think I'd ever play it at more than 1. You don't have to play it because I've certainly played without it for a long time, but I do like what it adds to the deck. It's that nice bit of board removal, mass removal. It is searchable, and it's that little extra, bit of interruption your opponent will have to worry about when trying to break your boards instead of just ending on number 81 pass. Next up, we have the 2 copies of Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede. This card I was specifically playing at 1 beforehand, but I've decided to play it at 2 because there were a few games on my stream, which is where I've been testing this a lot lately, I've just noticed that only having one of these was pretty detrimental to the grind game, or games that obviously would, go past that turn 1 or turn 2 OTK potential this deck has. And missing out on this card, a second copy, I really didn't like it. I really did miss the second copy, just because this card is just basically Altair or Wolfbark for your machine monsters, bring them out of the grave, and then it has that level manipulation effect to basically target another Earth Machine monster, and it can basically just gain the levels of that monster, or any other face-up monster for that matter. It doesn't need to be an Earth Machine, but you can just make it become a level 10, and that is extremely valuable to have in a card. It's just a very good follow-up, very searchable, and not having another copy really did hurt. And there's another thing to point out too. One of the other issues I was having was, with the actual count of how many level 4 or lower Earth Machine monsters we are playing, because that made it harder to resolve urgent schedule, late game, or if we had opened both our Stampede and our Infinitrack Harvester. So we couldn't resolve that because we didn't have that smaller machine monster to be able to summon off of it. And that also took away the ability to use our field spells effect to summon out an Earth Machine with 1800 attack from the deck, and make it a level 10. So that also kind of hurt as well. And you also saw that we're not playing Ruffian Railcar, so I kind of wanted to just add a second copy of this in, and I do like it at 2 better than 1, just because we won't have those issues anymore, with having a smaller count of normal summons, or this stat monster in the deck, 1800 attack. So I really do like the 2 Stampede. I think it's just helpful for the grind game, helpful just to be able to resolve your cards in weird situations. And it's just not a bad card to have all around. Even if you just normal summon this card without anything in the graveyard, and you have like something like Derricrane or whatever to follow it up, Bold Express, you can just, quickly get into a rank 10 that way. So very good card. Definitely a 2 of. I think 3 is probably a bit too much, but I think 2 is a good middle ground. Next up, we have 3 copies of the Infinitrack Brutal Dozer. This is the only Infinitrack that we're playing 3 of, because this is a really solid extender. If any of your normal summons get stopped, if any of your plays really get stopped, you just have this as a very powerful extender. Basically, you can just summon this by attributing an Earth Machine monster and special summon of your hand in defense position, and then it says if this card is special summoned from the hand, you can special summon 1 Infinitrack monster from your deck in defense position except itself, but negate its effects. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Earth Machine monsters. So that last restriction there does hurt a little bit. It really will only keep you out of a couple cards in your extra deck, and that being Gangiradai, which is a wind for some reason. And then you have Divine Arsenal Zeus, which it will also keep you from getting into. But this is a fantastic extender. Like I said, if you're, for example, if your Harvester gets ashed and you have this card in your hand, you can just tribute away the Harvester and summon out Trencher or Tunneler or Drag Shovel, and just continue to keep playing and go into your River Stormer and get a Search or a Foolish Burial from there. So having this card is pretty much always welcomed, just because it gives you more options in the plays that you're trying to make, and just an additional route to extend. So I really do like it at 3. And the Infinitrack engine is very good in here. I really do love the synergy that it adds, all the way to Goliath, and just the whole, River Stormer package, because it just nets you more advantage, nets you more cards, and it gives you another layer of play to make instead of just level 10, rank 10 play. That's it. So the Infinitrack engine gives the deck more depth, gives it more ceiling, gives it more versatility, and I really do like it. So then you'll see that is the only Infinitrack monster that we're playing at 3, because right here we're playing all these at 1. These 4 Infinitrack monsters. This engine is a little weird. As you saw earlier in the quick deck profile, we were playing 3 heavy forward, which is basically like tanky for the Infinitrack engine. So we can technically play 4 of all of these cards if we want to look at, the heavy forward in that way as a tanky. And technically we can play 6 copies of the Brutal Dozer, or 7 if you want to count Harvester. So Harvester can get access to all these, and then heavy forward can also get access to all of them as well. So playing 1 of each is fine. I don't think you really want to play more than 1. Brutal Dozer, like I said, is probably the one you want to play at 3, just because opening this card is very nice. Even if you open it with a heavy forward or a Harvester, it's welcomed as well, because you just get that extra card to your hand to work with. And more chances to resolve something like Drag, Shovel, or Trencher in the same turn, the more Infinitrack cards you see. But Harvester basically is the Stratos for your Infinitracks. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add an Infinitrack monster from your deck to your hand except itself. It has another really amazing effect that says you can target 1 other machine monster you control. The levels of both that monster and this card become the combined original levels of those 2 monsters until the end of this turn. So that's basically how you can access Zeus just normally. You can normal summon Harvester, search your Dozer, and then special summon either Bullet Train or Derek Crane to your field, and then use this effect to make them both level 12, and then boom, you get yourself a free Zeus just like that without having to go into the battle phase. So it's a fantastic way to start your turn. And then we also have Tunneler. It says you contribute 1 Earth Machine monster, special summon this card from your hand in defense position. And then it says you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 5 Earth Machine monsters in your graveyard as cost, shuffle them into the deck, then draw 2 cards. So basically an in-engine Pot of Avarice, and with a limited card pool that we are playing here, the very small engine, and the need to often recycle them, if the game does grind on, Tunneler is just a literal lifesaver. And not to mention, if you go into your River Stormer by normal means with Dozer, by summoning out like something like Trencher or Drag Shovel, you can just use River Stormer to dump the Tunneler to the graveyard and then immediately resolve its effect there if you have the requirements to do so. Drag Shuffle I really like just because it helps the deck go first even more. Basically says you contribute an Earth Machine monster, special summon this card from your hand in defense position. You can banish 1 machine monster from your graveyard, add 1 spin turn from your deck to your hand. So basically it's a little bit of searchable spot removal there as well. Spin turn is a really nice card, and this card can search it. And then Trencher basically has the same summoning requirement for both Tunneler and Drag Shovel. But it says you can basically banish it from the graveyard to target a level 5 or lower Infinitrack monster in graveyard except itself, and special summon it in defense position. So if you have Trencher and Harvester in the grave, you can just use Trencher to revive Harvester out, get another search of a Brutal Dozer, and keep playing. So this card does add a nice bit of graveyard utility for the deck. And I really, really do like it at 1. So again, I think all the ratios make sense, especially when you take into account we have the 3 heavy forward. But the Infinitrack engine does add greatly to the deck. It gives it so much more utility, and just a bit of a higher ceiling as well, as I've already said. So next up, 3 Ash Blossom. Really not much to say. One of the better hand traps of the format. Same thing with Psyframe Gear Gamma. Gamma is really nice in this deck because we have quite a few spells that we can play to start our turn, like Switchyard, like Heavy Forward, like Urgent Schedule, while we don't have any monsters on our field. And that's easy, like Ash Bait, and of course Gamma can take care of that because those are all cards that we can activate while we have no monsters. So Gamma is good at protecting those cards. And yeah, just all around fantastic card. It sucks that we have to play the Gamma with it, or the driver with it, but it is what it is. There's really not much you can do. You can't really get better than the destruction and the negation that comes with Gamma. So yeah, really like it in here. Then for our spells, 3 Revolving Switchyard. This is a fantastic card. Basically says if a level 10 Earth Machine monster is normal or special summoned to your field except in the damage step, you can activate this effect. Your opponent takes no battle damage, but for the rest of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. Also, you special summon 1 level 4 Earth Machine monster with 1800 or more attack from your deck, and if you do, it becomes level 10. So that 1800 more stat, that level 4 Earth Machine requirement, so that's one of the reasons, again, why I wanted to play that other copy of Pegasus, so we still have extra targets in deck to be able to resolve that other effect, which does come up sometimes and can basically just help you complete a rank 10 play if you have nothing else working in your favor. And then it has another effect that says you can send a card from your hand to the graveyard as cost, add 1 level 10 Earth Machine monster from your deck to your hand. So that's the effect you're probably going to be using the most. So it's a nice searcher card there. Then we have 3 heavy forward. You'll also notice that I'm not playing Terraforming. It's just because Terraforming I've really never liked in here. I know that sounds strange, but seeing multiple revolving switch yards really does suck, and I just wanted room to basically play another copy of Pegasus. So that's what I ended up cutting for. 3 heavy forward. Again, we talked about this a little earlier. The tanky for the Infinitracks. But this card does a lot more than that. Obviously, it says when it's activated, you can add an Infinitrack monster from your deck to your hand. But then it says once per turn, you can target 1 Xyz machine monster you control, then activate one of these effects. Change its battle position or attach this card to it as material. You can only activate 1 heavy forward per turn. So with this deck, you know, we can play Zeus and things like that. But the Infinitrack engine goes so much further than just those options that we can get off Harvester or the extension plays that we can get off of Brutal Dozer. We also play cards like Goliath, and obviously we play cards like Stormer, which we'll get into more once we hit the extra deck. But this says basically we can change its battle position, which is very, very important for a card like Spin Turn. Because Spin Turn can activate effects based on what battle position your Xyz monster is in. So having that manipulation effect is very, very good. Not to mention, it says you can attach this card to it as a material. So one thing you'll notice is that, you know, we have Goliath in the extra deck. It's a link 1, so we can make River Stormer and then basically link it off immediately into Goliath. But another important thing is later in the game, let's say you have something like Trencher Engrave, you can bring back something like the Harvester, get a search, link the Harvester into Goliath, and then use River Stormer's other effect in the graveyard, where it says if this card's in the graveyard, you contribute a Machine Link monster special on this card in defense position, which then you contribute this off. This will get its effect to attach itself to an Xyz monster control when it's sent to the grave, so immediately it recurs materials to it. But even if that's not enough, you can use Heavy Forward to put, you know, as a material underneath it, or you can just use Heavy Forward to give your Zeus more materials. So Heavy Forward is an extremely versatile, you know, just very well-rounded card for this deck as a whole. And I definitely think it's a 3 of 1,000%. Then next up, we have 3 Urgent Schedule. This card is basically just crack for this deck. Quick play spell. It says if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, special summon 1 level 4 or lower and 1 level 5 or higher Earth Machine monsters from your deck in defense position, but negate their effects. You cannot declare attacks the turn you activate this card except with machine monsters. If this set card is sent from your field to the graveyard, you can add 1 level 10 machine monster from your deck to your hand. So if they pop it while it's set, you get a search, but it basically just, you know, e-tellies 2 of your monsters out of the deck. And you can't really go wrong with summoning, you know, cards like Trencher and your Harvester, because you can just link those right off into Anger Knuckle and then banish the Trencher to summon Harvester to get a search, Brutal Dozer, and just go off from there. So this card facilitates so much. It can even be made live turn 1, especially with the help of cards like Gamma being played this format. They do Gamma you, that's going to put 2 monsters on their side of the field for you to work with to make this card live. So it isn't always completely dead if you do have to go first. So incredible extender all around. Next up, we have Forbidden Droplet. This card could be replaced with Forbidden Chalice, which I think I actually will replace it with Forbidden Chalice, not because the gold rares look so damn good, but I think Chalice, for what it's worth, is pretty much all you need. I think Droplet is a little too much in terms of the cost that you sometimes have to pay with this card. At the end of the day, we just need to be able to turn off cards like True King of All Calamities, and Forbidden Chalice will pretty much do the job every single time. But you also can't go wrong with droplets as well. But don't worry, there are definitely budget alternatives. You could also play Jizukiru in the main deck or Forbidden Chalice instead of droplet. So that's it for the spells. Now we'll go into the traps. Then we have 3 impermanents. There's really not much to say about impermanents. You know, can't get hit by Call By, doesn't trigger Triple Tactics Talent, breaks Chain Links because it targets, fantastic hand trap through and through. And then last but not least, Spin Turn. This is the card that Drag Shovel can search, It says activate one of the following effects. Target one Earth Machine exceeds monster control in attack position, and one monster your opponent controls. Change the battle position of your monster, and if you do, destroy that opponent's monster. And then the other effect is target one Earth Machine exceeds monster control in defense position, and one spell trap your opponent controls. Change the battle position of your monster, and if you do, destroy that opponent's spell/trap. So it's either a monster removal or a spell trap removal based on whatever position your monster is in. And of course, with the help of Heavy Forward, you can sort of set this card up however you want to. So that is it for the in-depth card-by-card breakdown for the main deck. That was a lot of stuff. That was a lot of talking. Let's go right into the extra deck now, though. We have two Infinitrack Goliath. A Link 1 Infinitrack. It just says one non-Link Infinitrack monster. You can summon this card multiple times per turn. The reason I bring that up is one of the times I actually made two of these like this to be able to go for a game for that extra 2,000 damage because I used a Trencher to summon out Harvester, and it comes out in defense. So I just needed another attack position monster with like 1,000 attack, and Goliath was the card to do it. But it says if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one Xyz monster you control, attach this card to that monster as a material. You can only use this effect of Infinitrack Goliath once per turn. And an Xyz monster whose original type is machine and has this card as material gains the fact this card cannot be destroyed by card effects. So you can make your Zeus, your Juggernaut Lieb, your number 81s unable to be destroyed by card effects, which is just absolutely absurd. And again, with a card like River Stormer, we can very easily get this card to the graveyard at any point to be able to attach whatever Xyz machine monster we want to make it indestructible by card effects. Next up, we have two double-headed Anger Knuckle. This card I think is a must at 2. You'll go into this card quite a bit, and it really does give this deck quite an edge. It's one of the best cards this deck has gotten in a long time. It says 2 machine monsters to make, cannot be used as link material. You can only use one of the following effects of double-headed Anger Knuckle per turn, and only once that turn. During the main phase, quick effect, you can send one monster from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target one level 10 machine monster in your graveyard, special summon in defense position, but negate its effects. So with that, you can basically just discard a level 10 and then revive that same level 10 to be able to trigger your field spell during your opponent's turn, which will summon out a bunch of monsters for you to basically wall up with. And hopefully one of those cards you're summoning is Bold Express for them to kill to get you an additional card back in the end phase. And then it says if this card is in your graveyard, you can send one card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon this card. So you can just constantly keep reviving it to trigger your Derek Rains, whatever it may be. So just outstanding, phenomenal Link 2 there. Next up, one of the newer additions to the deck is Drill Driver Vespinato. I was originally playing this card instead. Also, this is pretty much your budget replacement for AA Zeus. I'll point that out now. But yeah, this card I like because it gives you an option to go into as a level 5 or rank 5 instead of your River Stormer. So it's a bit more an aggressive card to make. It does piercing damage. Not only that, but if this card is in its own possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target a level 5 or lower monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So you can just use it to recur resources if it gets destroyed. 2 Infinitrack River Stormer basically says, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can attach that monster to this card as material. So that's already a pretty broken effect. And then it says you can detach one material from this card, and then take one Earth Machine monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. So that is huge as well, and it's one of the ways you can set up Machina Citadel into the graveyard turn 1, or any other cards, any other extenders like Tunneler or Trencher. Then it also says the effect where it says if this card is in your graveyard, you contribute a Machine Link monster, special summon this card in defense position. So it doesn't only have to be this card like Goliath that you contribute off, but you can use your double-headed Anger Knuckle as well, and then you can just use Anger Knuckle to bring itself back after you tribute off with River Stormer. And then into our rank 10s, which make up the bulk of the extra deck, we have Sky Palace Gingiridai from that gold rare set. Yeah, this is a card I wasn't playing for the longest time, mainly because I didn't own it. But it's really nice because it's kind of like Gustav Max, but a little bit better in some situations. Basically says you can detach a material from this card, then target one card your opponent controls, destroy that target, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. And then it cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. But that's fine, because sometimes you're going to be able to pop 2 off of this card and burn them for 1,000 in the process, and then be able to swing in 6k direct for, you know, with your Juggernaut lead, because you'll obviously be detaching Derek Crane off this. You'll get the pop from Derek Crane, you'll get the pop from this, and the burn for 1,000. So an incredible card. The only thing that would make it better is if it was an Earth monster. And then next we have 2 Gustav Max detached to burn for 2,000. I'm sure people have seen this card in Eldlik, but it does help you secure a game. You'll go into this, then right into Juggernaut Leave to clear out the rest of that 6,000. And then we have 2 Rail Cannon Superdora. Basically, you're going first alternative. Once per turn, during another player's turn, you can detach 1 extra material from this card, then target 1 face-up monster in the field. That target is unaffected by card effects except its own. So basically, like I said, your turn 1 alternative. And then your Rail Cannon Juggernaut Leave. This is also how you can go for game as well. You just exchange this over top of any of your rank 10 machine monsters, Xyz monsters that is, and then you transfer the materials to it. And then this is also one of the ways you'll be able to make Zeus very easily and get lots of materials underneath it is through this card. You can attach a material from this card. It'll gain 2,000 attack and defense permanently, but then for the rest of the turn you can only declare an attack with this card. And then it says during each battle phase this card can make attacks on monsters up to the number of Xyz material it has +1. So it can clear an entire board. Also, one of the reasons I kind of wanted to play Pentastag, but I don't know really what I'd cut. Maybe Vespinato. So you could play Pentastag for that potentially. But yeah, this card is phenomenal. Helps you secure the game. Same thing with Divine Arsenal Zeus. If game is not secured, we no longer have to worry about just leaving this guy on the field. If we failed an OTK, we can slap this guy on top of him to make it even harder for our opponent to come back. If, of course, we didn't resolve Brutal Dozer, because this, unfortunately, is not a light or earth monster. It is a light monster. This also is not a Starlight rare. This is the Imperium Perfect Fit Illusion Effect inner sleeve on that. So, yeah, that's it for the main deck and the extra deck. Side deck, I'll put up on screen right now. You've got the Triple Jizukiru, which was something I was main decking, but I decided to take it out for now because I think a card like Forbidden Chalice or Droplet is just better all around for that quick access to negation. Jizukiru also just sucks against Invoke Dogmatica because of Winda, which is a huge problem for this deck. So again, having that quick negation at any point is very, very welcomed. The Droll Knockbird, you know, stop your opponent immediately with Droll and then immediately OTK. I realize it's probably not the best against Virtual World, but not really too concerned with the Virtual World matchup with the way our deck is built currently. So Droll Knock pretty much covers everything else. Plenty of back row hate in the form of Cosmic Cyclone and Harpy's Feather Duster. And then we have some options for going first. Double Gozen, double Rivalry, and then the Red Reboot to kick everything off there. So that's the side deck. Pretty much personal preference. Covers a lot of the problematic matchups in my area. Obviously, things will change depending on what your locals looks like, whether they're online or in person. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, Winner Kills signing out. We'll see you in the next one. And as always, a huge shout out goes to our Divine level channel members here on YouTube, Academic Thick, Zors, and Cadillacs84. Thank you guys so much for your continued and generous support of the channel. It helps out so much and it means a lot. And again, thank you guys so much for the continued support.